I'm a simple man, and I perpetually hunger for a certain type of game. A box-stacking, code-cracking, man-kicking kind of game.
Yes, we're talking immersive sims. It's no secret that there's been quite the dry spell in this space when it comes to AAA titles, so we look below once more into the dark, boiling, bubbling miasma of the indie scene.
Today's game, Monomyth, was recently released into early access. It's an ambitious attempt to recapture that special sauce. It's filled with old-school design choices, winding dungeons, detailed character building, and sword-clashing combat, while sprinkling in a few modern perks of its own. And all of this is being made by a single developer.
As always, if you wish to pull up a chair at the ever-growing band of champions seated around the heroes table, we'll talk about a few ways that you can support us near the end of the video. For now, we ask, how does Monomyth stack up to the treasured sims of old? And is it worth shining a torch into the dark hallways of its early access period? Let's find out.
My name is Boss Sauce.
And I'm Roland Kunz. And together,
we are the two-headed hero. Small studios and solo devs have done a bang-up job of satisfying my unending gluttony for imsims, as I've noted before throughout my recurring series of roundups, and we've been eating pretty good this year. There's still one particular craving, though, that's never been filled. A true successor to the deep fantasy RPG imsim known as Arx Fatalis.
Arx Fatalis, a 2002 debut from the legendary French developer Arcane Studios, was conceived as a follow-up to the ancient Ultima Underworld series. But due to licensing snafus with Origin, it later dropped the Ultima name and spun off into, well, its own wild and wacky thing. Fans fondly remember the unique magic system, deep RPG mechanics, and highly interactive environments within Arx's vast underground. But its dismal commercial performance left publishers gun-shy about greenlighting a sequel. So, the world of Arx Fatalis was sadly relegated to the warm, fuzzy realm of nostalgia.
Until now. Well, sort of. Monomyth strives to be the spiritual successor to Arx in every meaningful way. We've had an eyeball on it ever since solo developer Rat Tower launched his Kickstarter campaign way back in 2021. If you've been following our channel, you might have seen it mentioned a couple times in the past, and as a full disclosure, the dev was kind enough to send us an extra review copy. After such a wait, we were intrigued to see what early access had to offer, so let's dig deep beneath the earth and explore the mossy caves and forgotten fortresses of Monomyth.
Like many RPGs of old, a new game starts with a familiar character creation screen. Admire the vast range of 5 generic white guys the game provides as default portraits before choosing to play as either Midwestern football dad or white Danny Trejo. At least a recent patch allows you to upload your own character portrait, which is a nice concession.
The attributes you choose here roll down to derived stats that directly affect how well your character can pick a lock, swing a blade, or talk to others. A powerful yet familiar system for building an adventurer to fit any playstyle. At least, in theory. We'll come back to this.
After rolling up your champion, Monomyth briefly introduces players to Lysandria, a vast underground kingdom and the last bastion of humanity. As things go. In this realm, most life has been scoured from the surface of the world, forcing mankind to move into the dank, dark caverns below. Dude. You'll step into the sabatons?
Sounds French.
Of a minor noble whose brother has gone missing during his search for a holy artifact, the primeval seed, which is rumored to contain enough miraculous power to restore the wastelands above to a livable state.
Huge, if true. Your quest is to find out what happened to his expedition and snatch up the seed for the good of the kingdom, so you sally forth into hostile wastelands that surround the entrance to Lysandria. Unfortunately, you don't get very far before a wastelander bonks you over the head and drags you off to some forsaken hole.
Just like in Arx Fatalis, your newly minted hero wakes up in jail. Jail for heroes.
Yep, hero jail.
Your buddy across the hall basically tells you that you won the jail cell lottery. Your prize? A secret passage that lets you escape. Wild feature for a jail. especially a hero jail.
Yeah, but think about Oblivion. You know, like the beginning of the game is like, you have a secret button in your jail cell that you get to escape. And in Arx, you have a secret button in your jail cell that lets you escape. And in this game, you have a secret button in your jail cell that lets you escape.
They always install one, you know? Anyway, once opened, the hidden path slowly directs you through each of the game's major mechanics. You'll learn the basics of speech, stealth, combat, exploration, and even do a little light puzzle solving as you carefully loop through the prison before dropping off right back at your cellmate so that you can set him free. Congratulations, you've made your first friend. That's how I make every friend that I have. And in Lysandria, friends are in short supply.
One of the first things you'll probably notice throughout your journey is how much detail went into the player movement. Your warrior can peek around corners, run and jump, sneak through the shadows, or even hoist themselves up over ledges. The weight of your equipment and armor also directly affects these maneuvers, which is a really thoughtful touch, and you'll need every move at your disposal to survive the game's precarious platforms and vicious monsters.
The crooked passages of Lysandria are filled with hungry cannibals, corrosive slimes, and rodents of unusual size.
Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
Naturally, you'll be forced to defend thyself during this epic journey, and swinging a weapon in Monomyth has a decidedly old-school feel. The strike's direction and power is determined by how long the attack button is held and what direction your character is moving in. A similar mechanic was first seen in Ultima Underworld before working its way into the Elder Scrolls series
And beyond!
But players can flip a toggle in the options menu to always use the best attack if they wish to simplify combat and avoid this extra maneuvering.
Since enemies hit back hard, standing in place and slugging it out is a quick way to an early grave. Humanoid enemies can be especially devious because they share most of your tricks. Don't be too surprised when the 7-foot wasteland cannibal takes a break from bludgeoning you to death just to unflinchingly chug a potion right in your face.
Other enemies have their own nasty tricks that you can't even have. Slimes can coat you with an acidic goo from a distance.
Hold on, I've got that one.
I can only do it from close up. Tombs are filled with walking corpses and magic slinging skeletons. Wait, what's the trick that walking corpses can do that I can't?
Be dead and walk.
Be dead and walk.
Also take like 20 arrows to the face.
These fish-like sewer dwellers are especially deadly, with their disorienting stench and tough, scaly hides.
Well, I got one of those, but I'm not going to tell you which one. But don't despair. You've got options. A sudden application of the mighty boot can knock your enemy to the ground, or off a ledge. Chuck a bottle at their face to stagger them. Parry their strike at the very last moment to deliver a punishing counter. Step in to deliver a quick stab before ducking out of range. Mixing up your tactics often proves to be a far better defense than any armor can provide, as long as you have the room to maneuver.
So, what else do we have? Ranged combat? Well, that is an option, but it's not much of one. Sure, the physics system allows you to bonk a guy with a Bible for comedic effect. If you really want to engage bad guys from a distance, well, you can use bows, and that's it. Arrows are only sold by a couple of out-of-the-way merchants, and are otherwise in short supply until much later in the game. To make matters worse, your aim sway is pretty heavy until you drop a few skill points into archery. In a nod to the Thief games, a couple trick arrows can douse torches or light fires from afar. Overall, bows are more suited to pulling a monster away from a group, and less efficient for hunting down the deadly denizens of this underground realm.
There's also a rune-based magic system, partially lifted from Arx Fatalis itself. Rune stones must be collected and placed in this pentagram here before spells can be cast, and clicking around on these little rocks in different orders can reveal new spell effects, even if you haven't found the corresponding magical scroll. We always have a lot of praise for a magic system that encourages experimentation and discovery like this.
Sadly, the classic panic of trying to remember how to draw a picture while a goblin murders you is missing. On the downside, it took a lot of digging around before I found any decent spells. Magic seems to be more weighted towards utility instead of combat, which is good news for those that want to walk around underwater or light torches without a flame, I guess. The barrier to entry is pretty high for the few attack spells I found, which seems to limit the viability of a wizard build altogether.
So, what does this all mean? Well, most of the skills and attributes you choose at character creation don't seem to matter all that much, which makes progression in the early game feel fairly flat. For a while, you'll basically be playing different flavors of melee fighter with the occasional spell sprinkled in, at least until you've hacked apart enough rats and completed enough farmer quests to level up your champion to your preferred playstyle. Until this happens, you'll be batting away at monsters like a baby kitten far more often than you'd like. The ability to respec is planned for a later patch. Until that's a reality, making a few bad skill choices early on can seriously nerf your character.
As opposed to smurfing them.
But if you turn little and blue, you have smurfed your character, and you're probably playing a different game.
Putting aside the battles and old school skill progression, you'll find the world of Monomyth has a lot to offer. It constantly challenges the player to think outside the box. Sure, you can track down the keys or pick the lock on that stubborn door, but what if you just burn it down with a torch? Or break it down with your sword? Can you find the missing piece of that broken lever to raise the gate barring your path? Or would it be easier to just stack up some crates and jump through that hard-to-reach window above? There's a lot of opportunity for clever solutions, and with that comes the danger of occasionally outsmarting yourself.
The rest of the world also feels really tactile and interactive, allowing you to mess around with much of the environment. Tired of hacking away at monsters? Maybe have a seat down at the harp for a little jam session. Broke and hungry? Fish up a quick meal out of the river, then cook the fish over an open fire. If you want dessert, you can bake a pie. And I'm not just talking about clinically clicking a bake pie button in some hidden arcane crafting menu. I mean, go through the process of making the dough, rolling it into a pie crust, putting berries in it, and sticking it on the stove until it turns a delicious shade of golden brown.
Ooh, floor pie.
Little sidebar, why does video game food always look so good?
Enough rambling about dungeon snacks. Let's talk about dungeon maps. Monomyth might still be in early access, but there's already a lot to explore. Towering, majestic castles, dark, rat-infested caves filled with the spirits of past adventurers, ancient keeps, long since abandoned and overrun by armies of subhuman wastelanders, half-drowned mazes filled with the servants of long-dead sorcerers, all buried beneath the march of time.
Developer Rat Tower seems to have taken special care to craft a world with old-school Immersive sensibilities, keeping verticality and multiple paths of traversal at the top of their priority list. And it's really hard to argue with the results. Monomyth always feels like it has one more secret to uncover, one more riddle to solve, one more treasure to plunder just around the next corner. Mechanically, the level designs are circuitous hub worlds filled with secret passages and shortcuts that loop back on each other like a nest of serpents. Monomyth is really light on handholding. No yellow paint marks the way forward here. The game clings to the design tenets of dungeon crawlers from the distant past, but it still provides a couple tools to give you a bit of an edge.
A somewhat vague journal guides your journey to find your missing sibling. A spellbook keeps track of the results of your rune experiments, and a crudely drawn map helps you remember your path. The journal and map both let you make little notes, which is a nice touch. It encourages the player to think for themselves and keep track of important clues and landmarks.
If we're being real though, the most important tool your explorer has are these golden shrines. When you inevitably succumb to Lysandria's dangers, you'll drop some experience points and pop back up right in front of the last shrine you visited. You can stomp your way back to wherever you met your unfortunate end and inhale the little green fear fart you left behind to regain those dropped experience points, in a little nod to the Dark Souls series. The next time you visit a shrine, you can trade in that XP to level up, or pay off NPCs that you might have slighted during your misadventures.
Monomyth makes a brave choice when it comes to the game's few friendly faces. You can punch them. That's right, you can pummel a priest, pound a pilgrim, fight a fisherman, or knife a noble, if that's your kink. Even plot-critical characters are not safe from the player's potential path of destruction. Most of the time, though, you'll be face-to-face in conversations with these NPCs, bartering for goods and interrogating them for morsels of info, all in hopes of having enough supplies to follow the path of your lost brother's expedition. Daw.
Little brotherly love. Questing is deceptively simple in Monomyth. Sure, the idea of trying to save humanity from a life under the surface of a sandblasted planet might be attractive, but the main plot's premise is almost as basic as it gets, boiling down to the find the MacGuffin and save the world formula at its core. Just because it's a simple story doesn't mean it's going to be easy, though.
Due to the aforementioned lack of handholding, you'll usually only have a few lines of dialogue or a couple vague sentences to go off of. The realm is signposted fairly well, so it's usually not too tough to figure out where to go next if you take the time to look around the environment for possible pathways. And if you truly get stuck in a tough situation beyond the point of no return, well, there's always the period-accurate, good old-fashioned
Save Scum
standing by your side.
You know, I just feel a little bit better if there's a good old-fashioned save scum standing by my side. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Save Scum entered the party.
Like the main quest, many of the side missions are simple fetch quests at surface level that end up being far more involved, and honestly, this is where Monomyth is at its strongest. Devious puzzles and dangerous traps often stand in the way of your goal, and finding a way around them, or through them, becomes an enjoyable part of the challenge.
Some of the side areas just toss a few extremely tough monsters in your path and challenge you to think up a way around them. Other quests just involve finding a way inside. Inside what? Inside something.
Yeah, basically.
Raising that gate might seem like a simple task, yet everything gets more complicated when that lever has been snapped off and chucked into the bottom of a slime-infested sewer.
The best quests tend to have map-spanning riddles, with clues carefully placed and puzzle elements that call you back to previously explored areas. Tracking down the runestones that open this magical green barrier requires conquering a series of mini-dungeons in the far corners of Lysandria, which each have their own unique challenges locked within. Even the game's limited fast travel system requires a little bit of brain gymnastics to operate. Much of the experience here heavily hints at ancient RPG game design.
To a point, that nostalgic lens also filters the game's presentation. Again, keep in mind that Monomyth has a dev team of one busy guy, so don't expect photorealism here. The character models lean more towards the simplistic side and evoke a bit of a 6th generation feel, with a clay-like texture to their features and shiny surfaces on their clothes and armor. A lot of care was taken to add little touches and details, though. Get a load of the cute little eye patch on this guy, or the ornate fringes on the robes of the priest, or the slimy fish skin on these sewer-dwelling piranha men. Just makes you wanna lick 'em.
From time to time, you might see the odd choppy animation, but the attacks and feints from Monomyth's multitude of enemies are telegraphed well enough, and it always felt like the combat was responsive.
The environments received the most attention, with gritty stone textures dominating the palette. After a point, many of the caves and castle walls start to look pretty similar. I guess what did we expect from an underground labyrinth? Most areas had enough environmental cues and subtle touches to set them apart from each other, though. Shriveled trees and shelves of giant mushrooms line the cliff sides, for example. If there's one thing that puts the vibe over the top, it'd be the careful use of lighting. Monomyth is a dark game, to be sure. Torches, candles, and light spells are vital to exploring the twisting levels. Whether it's the yellow glow of your own dwindling torchlight in a dusty cave, the overcast skies of a hulking bastion, or the green hue of a wizard's keep, this game knows how to strike a mysterious mood.
Lysandria is filled with a dark and foreboding atmosphere. Distant breezes whistle through caves. Lonely braziers crackle in forgotten hallways. Arcane magics thrum from long-abandoned artifacts. During battle, the clangs of axe and shield pierce through this veil of serenity as battle music swells in the background, finishing with a crescendo as the last body falls to the floor. There's even a few voice lines sprinkled in the dialogue sessions.
Hey! Oh, it's you. Hey! Oh, it's you. Hey! Oh, it's it's you.
Although conversations aren't fully voice acted, these little introductory barks do much to add some personality to the rest of the human NPCs.
What a relief!
The soundtrack consists of ambient fantasy themes, and for the most part it fits well even if it won't be making my Spotify rotation anytime soon. There's a lot of early 2000s synth strings and thumping tribal drums, and even though that main battle theme starts to get a little repetitive after the first dozen times, the songs definitely evoke the era that Monomyth strives to emulate.
As Monomyth marches through early access, you're sure to see it stumble over the inevitable potholes. One or more of your saves might corrupt, causing your character to spawn in his boxer shorts within an inescapable fountain purgatory. Pathfinding and hitboxes for some of the creatures can get a little wacky at times, resulting in some hilarious Looney Tunes tactics or straight up cheesin'.
There's one particular segment that really leans into the dreaded video game sewer level curse, featuring huge spongy monsters and identical hallways. I did not feel bad about cheesing this section, especially once I realized some of the doorways were too small for the big beefy enemies to fit through. There's also one little detail that kept bothering me. Where are all the women at? I mean, I get that the primeval seed is supposed to make the surface of this world livable for humanity again, but who are we saving it for exactly? Even the Soul City in the game feels a little light on population, and what's there is a pure sausage festival.
Welcome to Underground Kielbasa Khan.
Frankly, if there's only dudes and monsters everywhere I go, I gotta wonder, how do they keep making more dudes? Are we in like a Children of Men situation, taking far too literally? There's not even a female character model in the game, as far as I can tell.
And I mean, I like a game where I can play as either a big weird monster or a little weird monster, so like...
Do not touch me, I am of noble birth. Oh! You dare to challenge me?
Look, overall, these are nitpicks. Is Monomyth worth picking up? For RPG fans, the answer is yes. For immersive sim fans, the answer is absolutely. Right now, the early access version consists of 3 large open areas to explore, with a few minor dungeons sprinkled in between. This adds up to at least 20 hours of gameplay, much more if you chase down all the secrets and side quests, or if you're bad at game, like me. And while you'll be running into the occasional rough edges, updates are coming along at a steady pace. Some of the complaints will be ironed out by the time this video goes live, and others are already on the roadmap.
Throughout all my time trudging through the underworld, I kept getting hints of distant core memories that pulled me back to Arx Fatalis, Ultima Underworld, Kingsfield, and other ancient RPG grades. This game's tactile and open approach makes it feel like playing a forgotten relic from a bygone era, a time where single-player dungeon crawlers came with fat manuals and printed maps, and were lengthy, intricate puzzle boxes filled with dozens of hours of gameplay. Monomyth is a worthy and long-awaited addition to a growing list of indie dungeon crawlers inspired by this era, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the game will bring once it hits 1.0.
Finally, I thought you would never wake up.
Thanks again for coming along with us on our little dungeon crawl through these early access corridors. An extra special thanks to all our supporters from the Heroes Tavern over on Patreon and Ko-Fi. If you'd like to get involved with keeping our channel afloat, consider paying the bouncer at the tavern door and joining us around this roaring fireplace. Ooh, so toasty.
Marshmallows time.
For 2 royal ducats per month, our champions gain early access to videos, frequent updates, exclusive content, and special Discord roles.
A hearty cheer goes out to the brave knights at our Seat of Honor level, Wolfgang Bristol and John Mark Collado.
And we raise our voices in song to everyone seated around the heroes' table, including, and this will be in song,
Adam Yuselman,
John Isabel,
KK,
Walpays,
Yaroslav Rybaki, and the rest. Your donations truly make a difference, but if you find your coin pouch a little light this month, you can still help us out by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and telling all your fellow dungeon divers to come watch our stuff. Are there any more cozy indie dungeon crawlers we should know about? Or even just games where you can kick guys into a river? Like this? Let us know down below.
Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next
Two-Headed Hero.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.